It is Monday, March 23rd, around 6 o'clock. And I said I wouldn't be done with my new album this month, March, but I kind of did finish it. I've already shared 3 of the songs: West Coast Time, Boston Found, and Zombie. Zombie was my Evolution of a Song, episode 2. And it's highly inspired by Fela Kuti, his zombie song, and just other ideas I had in my head. The one I'm going to share today is the album opener, and I figured I'll share one song a day like I did with Willie the Vegan. Although I kind of rushed that one, and I shared like maybe 4 songs towards the end of it. But we'll see how this goes. I got 5 more songs to share for this album, The Humble Trip, which wasn't supposed to be an album, but I've kind of come to peace that every song I'm writing kind of goes together, some kind of weird timeline that I'm not aware of until it happens. So that's how my songwriting is right now. I used to be kind of different. I guess I would wait longer. I would just have jam sessions on my acoustic and put the songs together. Months or years later, once I liked some of the jam sessions and I could cut and paste things, different recordings together, it was kind of a more fun part of the puzzle. Because if you jam on an acoustic guitar for 2 hours, you're not going to come up with that much stuff. You really aren't. I would usually start out real slow, and then as I warmed up, I would form some melodies in my head, and I would kind of take notes of the time where I came up with some stuff. But right now, I don't have a guitar. I don't have my usual songwriting process for the last 6 or 7 months. And I've just been doing it like this, and it's working so far. Whether I do it in my car or other places where I get song ideas, usually when I'm driving right now, I'll get sparks of melodies going in my head, and then I'll be like, well, was that even good? And then I'll listen to it a couple days later. This one's not really that much different. It kind of came out all at once. But the hook to this song came to me, I think, back in January, which seems like a year ago. End of January, I donated platelets at a Red Cross, and it was probably my 2nd or 3rd time doing it, and I made it through. The first time I didn't make it. I only made it like an hour and a little bit over an hour, which was fine. You could still have a product to give to people, but usually you have to sit there for 2 hours while they circulate your blood in the machine and they take out your platelets and plasma. So I was pretty happy that I made it, because the first time I didn't make it, and I had this funky hook in my head that's basically just the funk's for everybody. The funk's for everybody. The funk's for everybody. And it just kept going like that in my head for like an hour while I was giving platelets. Yeah, it was weird. I kind of remembered it after I was done, and I briefly made a recording of just that. So now I'm incorporating that into this song. But let me get to the general, since this is really the first recording I'm making about this album, The Humble Trip. It's a concept that is not that unusual. I said even The Weeknd had an album like this a couple years ago, maybe 2020, where it's like a person. I think the concept was kind of a person riding in a car, and they were tuning the radio to different songs, and there were spoken word skits and stuff. So I'm basically doing the same thing. I made an album in 2020 or around that time called Digital Incineration. It's all rap songs, basically all rap and poppy stuff. But there are some funky parts to that too, now that I look back at it. But it's very lyrically dense, like tons of lyrics. This one, not so much. But digital incineration was a concept of the world was ending, so some dude got in his car and he just started driving, not knowing where he's going. And as he drives, his connection to humanity gets worse and worse, and his radio signals getting weaker and weaker, and he doesn't really know what's happening. Maybe I saw it in a movie or something. There was an apocalyptic event, and I think it was a Netflix movie, and some dude got in his car and just started driving. So that's kind of basically where digital incineration came from. Each song I wrote was something that he would hear on the radio. So I'm replicating that. Maybe I'm going kind of stale in terms of concepts, but the main reason I wanted to do it like this is because all these songs are so different. There's like a poppy club song, West Coast Time. If I produce it like I want to, it'll be like a club song. And there's a Lost and Found, which was like an Americana country song. This song today that I'm doing called Anyone and Everyone's kind of like a spiritual rap spoken word song with some funky elements to it. There's the Zombie song that I did already, and that's like the Fela Kuti Afrobeat influence. Just one long stream of conscious without any choruses, just verse after verse, and then an outro. In the rest of this album, there's some Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath influenced songs. There's like a hardcore punk song, and then the last song I don't really know how to describe. It's just kind of a Wilco ballady song, which I don't really write too often anymore. So because of that, because this album is so many different genres, I didn't know how to really organize it or put these songs together to make sense. People would be like, what the hell am I listening to? So I just like the concept of some guy, maybe, I don't know, maybe he's a refugee and he's driving through his country trying to find a new place to live. And each song that comes on the radio as he's driving kind of correlates to his emotional state or his psychological frame of mind, his feelings and his anxieties and his hopes and dreams and all that good stuff. You're trying to make a new life for yourself. The difference with this album is I think it's one of my happier endings. And Digital Incineration, I don't even remember how I ended that. I don't think anything bad happened, but it's about the end of the world. So there's like, even though the songs are kind of upbeat, it's kind of a darker type of we're all slaves to digital technology, like that type of theme, which I'm tired of at this point. So I'm not going that direction. This one's more fun and just scatterbrained and really going with the flow, which is my main philosophy in life. But this album musically is really just going with the flow. I did take some time to put these songs in order to make some sense out of it, to organize it, because the songs are so different. It was difficult to kind of put them together, but I think I did a pretty good job. And yeah, like I said, this one, the album's called The Humble Trip. It's really just a guy in his car. It could be a man or woman, but in this case, I made it a man. And he's just driving, trying to find a new place to live his life, to explore, to find a new community, find a new purpose, and change of scenery and stuff like that. So it's relevant. A lot of these thoughts are in my own head right now. as I'm planning to move across the country once I get a job and security. So that's basically where this album formed, and it's still forming. I took about 2 or 3 hours today, and I wrote the rest of the lyrics for the rest of the songs, and or maybe that was yesterday, a little bit yesterday, a little bit today. I don't even remember. The days kind of blend together. And I'm pretty happy with the lyrics. I don't think they're redundant because I found that out as I've been writing songs over the last few months. There sometimes I get a little redundant about certain words or phrases, and everything kind of just sounds the same in my head sometimes. So I'm trying to stay away from that if I can, and just find a different voice when I can, at least, without sounding too fake. Like the Fela Kuti, yeah, I openly said I'm writing a song called Zombie, and it's influenced by Fela Kuti. When I wrote that song and I came up with the drum beat that I had in my head, and yeah, I'm not trying to hide the fact. It's not like I'm trying to steal his flavor or the Afrobeat flavor. I just really like it. It would be cool to experiment with that type of music. And the only thing I would say about this track, Anyone and Everyone, it's kind of like my mantra these days, anyone and everyone, because it feels like it protects me from bad forces all that bad stuff that it sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons philosophy. Like if somebody tries to put some bad shit on you, you put like a reflection spell on yourself. So to anyone and everyone, that's kind of what the title of the song, where it came from. I was under that mentality that people who try to put bad shit on you, their bullshit on you, they'll just get it back on them, which would prevent a lot of that shit. People will just mind their own business a lot of times, I think. I wrote about this in my book like a year ago, 2 years ago, like a protection spell, because I have an album called Protection Spells, and it's kind of connected to that as well. That's where the title came from. The music, I like to open this album very peacefully, and today I wrote 4 skits. One of my favorite podcasts on Mondays, at least, and I got pretty addicted to it, is that 1000, every Monday they come out with a new episode. It's the 1001 album complaints. I linked it before. And today they talked about Eminem's debut and how Dr. Dre influenced it with some skits and stuff. I don't even remember the skits, if I even listened to that whole album ever. But at least on the Chronic and some other ones, it was like a hip hop genre thing to put skits in between songs, which sometimes it worked, sometimes it's just like skip it because you don't want to really listen to it too many times. So anyway, I wrote 4 skits. So as this guy is driving in his car, like the first skit would open the album, it would be a police officer pulls him over and starts interrogating him kind of in an eccentric fashion. That's how the album starts, pretty much. That's what causes him to just take off, I guess, in my imaginary world that I'm creating. Musically, I just was thinking of Alabama Shakes, their song Gemini, and it has really cool groove. There's a dark quality to it, but it's also very mellow and just has a really interesting flavor. If you never listened to Sound and Color, that's one of my favorite albums of the last decade or so. I think it came out maybe 10 years ago. It came out 2015, April 21st. Sound and Color by Alabama Shakes. And it's one of my favorite albums. I always go back to it. Especially when I was writing screenplays, I would always want to listen to this album, Sound and Color, because it always gave me like a different perspective for some reason. And I always try to include music in my screenplays, and my screenplay Garrity was like all about Alabama Shakes. I used maybe 3 of their songs. If I could get permission, I would use them in the episode. I like doing that. I like writing a screenplay and then picking an album to just select songs from. Like I used the Kinks Lola versus Power Man. I used Tom Petty Into the Great Wide Open, Alabama Shakes Sound and Color. What was the other one? The New Perspective by Donald Byrd, I think. I think that's who it was. Yeah, a really good jazz album. And there's a couple others I'm probably forgetting about. But I just think it's cool to bind an episode, because I wrote like an original series like The Twilight Zone, and to bind the episode together, I think it's cool to use the same album. Because Sound and Color, I don't know what the concept is, but every song just flows together, and the album is just really seamless. It's really a perfect album that I would recommend to anyone. Alabama Shakes. So I would try to think of a groove similar to that for this first track. And it's spoken word, very mellow spoken word. I don't even want to call it a rap song because it's just spoken word poetry. And there's a pre-chorus that kind of samples Home on the Range, where the deer and the antelope play, or whatever it is. And there's an outro. So this is one of the longer songs in terms of lyrics and song structure. And I'll just go through the first verse right now, see if I can get through it. Anyone and everyone, pros, cons, in the Photoshop, breaking points now rolled up in joints, and the stream won't be quite worth the course towards the cursed mindset of another rebirth. Awake at 44 with the bloat of agony, asleep at 44 with a humble destiny. The trip now mine, but in a field of minds with a mumble mind and a map to memorize, but the trip now humbled by those doubling down on the ignorant tears of the clown, but the trip now humbled by the phantoms exterminated and proud, but the trip now humbled. And basically that entire verse would just be led by some bass line and maybe light percussion. I just kept thinking of the song Gemini by Alabama Shakes. So if you want to get a feel for what I want to create, it would be similar to that song. So thank you, Alabama Shakes, for inspiring this one. And it goes into a weird pre-chorus, and I kind of see it as like a spoof of the Home on the Range song. So as you end the first verse, by the phantoms exterminated and proud, but the trip now humbled. The trip now humbled. Then you go into the pre-chorus. Please find me a home with those buffalo robes. Maybe that's even like what I was thinking in this song. Maybe the guy's even tuning the radio in his car, and he's coming up with different things, because that's kind of the effect I want for this track. It's kind of corny. It could be a novelty, but I think it works on this track at least. Because even this one, the verse is very, very humble, very mellow groove, and then it goes into the pre-chorus. Please find me a home with those buffalo robes. And then you could mimic like the sound effects of tuning a radio, even though radios today aren't analog, but you could still manipulate it. Maybe this is a story that happened in the 1970s or 60s. I'm not sure. It's a different universe, whatever. All radios are still analog, or the radio he had in his old car was analog radio with antenna, so it's not digital. All right, so after that pre-chorus, it's kind of a sample of "Please find me a home with those Buffalo Roll," but hopefully I could do that as like a novelty of that song. Maybe that song's old enough. Maybe it's in the public, whatever that's called. What's it called? The public record or whatever that term is, that you could use old songs without getting permission from people. I can't think of the word. It's going to bug me. When does a song enter the public domain? Yeah, I couldn't think of that. Public domain, like Kimbra and the Gautier song used a bunch of old nursery rhymes like "Bob Bob Black Sheep" and shit like that. It's pretty cool, and I think that they could just use them without permission because they're over 100 years old or whatever it is. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. The public domain. Maybe I could use that, or I would just have to manipulate it to make it sound different. Whatever. The lyrics are different, but I kind of want to use the same melody for that. Anyway, you get to the hook after the pre-chorus, and the hook is what I sang earlier. I added some additional lyrics. The funk's for everybody. Ba-do-do-do-ba-do-do. The Viking and the zombie. Ba-uh-uh-uh-na-na. The mutant and the convict. Da-na-na. The gospel of the calm way. And I always seem like a transition from that hook to the next verse. You would just have some echo effect on the calm way, and then get back into that Gemini Alabama Shakes inspired groove. I'll have to just really focus on a bass line for this song because that's going to lead everything. Lead the verses at least. Verse 2 is the same exact type of feel. Anyone and everyone. Anyone and everyone. Chords unblessed and revoked by thought. The craze of owning your own skin and bone. The stream won't quite limit the surge. Wherever it flows to maintain those social molds. Burnt at 44 with the colonoscopy colonial. Turned at 44 within the memory monopolized. The trip still strange, strangled and spayed between the sheets of the sickest charade, but the charlatan now strays, with the landing stuck to tame each dame, but the charlatan now strays, by the warlock and hand-me-downs, but the charlatan now strays, on those televised replays, as the trip stays humbled, into a pre-chorus. And those deer and those antelope pray. You go back to the chorus after that, the hook, whatever. The funk's for everybody. The Viking and the zombie. The mutant and the convict. The gospel of the calm way. I hear the hook being sung by like a group of background singers or some kind of funky group of people, maybe 3 or 4 voices. I always hear female voices for a lot of the hooks I come up with, but I don't know yet. It'll be a work in progress. After you get through the hook the second time, the gospel of the calm way, I would go into some kind of funky breakdown. And that funky breakdown would lead into the outro of this song. The outro contains a phrase that I don't even know where I came up with it. It might have been that same recording after I donated platelets, and I was thinking of the funky stuff that was in my head, and I think that's where I came up with this too. I could be wrong though, but sometimes I just have one phrase that pops in my head, so that's all I record. But I don't remember when I came up with this one, but it just goes, embrace that all clear, all right. Embrace that all clear, all right. Embrace that all clear, all right. And I use this on Zombie as well. I like it as like a repeating type of motif for this album. I don't know what it really means. It's like, embrace that all clear. There's a near emergency or some kind of tornado warning or some kind of shit. And then people realize it's nothing and they go all clear. Maybe that's what it means. Like your heart skips a beat and then you're relaxed again. Like, oh, cool. It's only turbulence. We're not going down. I don't know. I guess that's kind of where it came from subconsciously. I don't fucking know, man. But that's basically how this song would form. That's how it is in my head right now. And I'm almost at 30 minutes, so I guess I'm going to wrap this one up. I don't want to speak too long. What else could I talk about? This album, I'll try to do one song a day for this week, because if I keep it to 20, 30 minutes, that's not a big deal for me. And I feel like I could complete this album by the end of this week and move on to other projects. Yeah, lately I've just been focusing on visual stuff and staying away from writing lyrics or writing my March essay, kind of procrastinating that. And sometimes my brain just goes there because it's, I don't want to say it's easier to do visual arts the way I do it, because I'm just looking at my phone for like 10 hours trying to doodle stuff off and on, and it's probably not the greatest way. I kind of binge it when I get the urge to do doodles, and now they're becoming kind of more complicated where they take me like an hour each. And because I don't like taking 3 hours or whatever. Some people make a painting and it takes them like 40 hours. It's understandable if you're using, if you're using physical material and you have a large canvas or you have to use different techniques. I can kind of understand that. I've never tried really doing stuff like that. I just use my phone to create all of my doodles, all of my paintings, and anything else I do visually. My album covers. I used to have a laptop, and now I'm just using my phone because it's actually kind of easy to use. And then it's kind of interesting because my only reaction to the art I make is when I look at it on my phone. But sometimes I'll go to the library and I'll look at it on the big screen, computer screen, and I'm like, wow, it looks completely different now. It's like I'm looking at it for the first time again. I don't know if other people can relate to that. Because if you're only working on your phone, I write all my lyrics on my phone. I record all my songs on my phone right now. All my song blueprints. I create all my visual art only on my phone. I don't use anything else. I got a couple free paint programs and that's all I use. And it works, I'm not complaining, man. It gives me a good creative outlet. So I'm completely digital. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, that Digital Incineration album was all about getting away from the digital world, or how it sucks you back in if you're not careful. And I'm kind of over that because I just look at it like this is my job right now. I'm just creating whatever I can create with the tools I have. And yeah, over the last few days, because I've been fasting every other day, trying to get into an intermittent fast type of thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with it, But that's what I've been doing the last couple of days, or over the last week or so. Eat one day, don't eat the next day, and it could take your body a while to get used to that. I'm not sure if I want to do that, but I'm just kind of experimenting with it right now, see how it goes. I figured I'd just see, because I've always wanted to try doing that. I just never really forced myself into that type of lifestyle. And that's basically everything. Again, I'll share on this post, I'll share the Alabama Shakes Gemini song. That's really the only song that led me to the creation of this. I guess I'll share Home on the Range. I don't know why that popped in my head. I guess it's like, because I keep thinking of the Southwest, and there's probably a bunch of ranches out there, like Utah. That's probably more Montana, Wyoming. But even in New Mexico, Arizona, there's a there's a legacy or a history of ranching and cowboys and all that stuff, the Wild West shit. And that's kind of interesting to me. I've always been intrigued by that type of environment, that type of atmosphere. So maybe that's why Home on the Range just came into my mind today, because I think I included that. I had the verses composed, but I didn't have the pre-chorus yet until I looked at it today, and I was like, I need something else. That's basically the whole song, though. It's a little bit more complicated than some of the other ones I've done, but I think it's a good opener. And I guess I'll leave it there. It's a good opener because it kind of plays into this whole appeal of this concept of a guy riding, going with the flow. He doesn't even know where he's going. And he just keeps tuning the radio. Maybe he's a little anxious. So he's tuning the radio, trying to find something to calm him down or something that he connects with. And that's basically how this entire album would be produced as a concept. There's a cinematic type of flavor to it. I said this is not new. I'm openly saying that I've done an album like this before myself, kind of similar type of appeal to it. Because I'm like, if I don't do an album like this, it just would become too much of a Ween album, and I don't want to copy Ween, where Ween can explore any genre. Like on Quebec, they have like a Motorhead song, they have funk songs, proggy songs. Quebec's a really cool album by Ween, but it's like it's all over the place. I don't know how it works, but it works. I had one other album that I wrote like this called Maybe Aliens, and it's got songs that are just scattered. And I was like, this is my Ween album. Maybe Aliens, I wrote it over the summer, last summer, and in a similar fashion, I would just come up with songs and try to put them together throughout the day, and it came pretty quickly. And I was like, these songs don't make sense as an album. If you put them all together, they don't have a genre. There's no genre to this album. And I'm like, well, I guess this is my Ween album. I don't want to do that again. So, unless I can come up with another concept, this is kind of what I'm going with right now. And I enjoy it. I think it'd still be a unique way to listen to an album from front to back, at least on your first listen. I think most people want to listen to an album when they first get it from front to back to see how it flows. I always do that. I love it like that. The only music I'm trying to listen to right now is Fela Kuti. And hey, that's kind of a different experience because he's got like 20-minute songs and these long, repetitive jam sessions. But also, it's cool because you can notice when the different polyrhythms start, the different connective tissue that don't compete against each other, the different beats, the different melodies that kind of overlap. And it might go 10 minutes and then his vocals come in out of nowhere, like, and by that point, like, you're already in some hypnotic trance. And I'm kind of stealing this analysis from the podcast I listened to last week or this week, last week, called Fear No Man, the Fela Kuti story, which was pretty good. I couldn't stop listening to it, so it was definitely good. I think it's about 12 episodes or 13 episodes, maybe an hour long each, about Fela Kuti's life and his politics and his music. And yeah, I only listened to 4 of his albums so far, but I'm gonna try to go through every one of his albums by next month. Get through all of them because there's a shit ton of them. But that's where my brain is musically. But the music for this album, it's all over the place. This one is inspired by Alabama Shakes and some funky, mellow juxtapositions that don't really work together, but I think they could work together if I put it in the right production style, where this song would make sense because the album is supposed to be like that. You turn the radio and you turn from one station to the next, and you get different emotional responses and different songs that just connect with you or you hate. That's kind of what I'm trying to bring to this concept if I'm able to do it. And I guess that's everything. Tomorrow I'll go through another song. Tomorrow's song is another funk song, actually. And it's very Stevie Wonder inspired, I think. It's Stevie Wonder inspired, but maybe also like modern funk stuff, which I don't even know. The only modern funk thing I can think of is Bruno Mars. But I did enjoy, like, what was that, Silk Sonic? Is that Bruno Mars? I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it was. Silk Sonic members. Yeah, Silk Sonic is Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars, and also some other people. Oh, those are the only names that are on it, but I'm sure they have other people. Maybe even Bootsy Collins. Silk Sonic recruited Bootsy Collins, who came up with the name and the narration. Well, whatever. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, but I've only listened to that album once. But anyway, I'll get into it more tomorrow. Maybe I'll listen to some Silk Sonic tonight. But tomorrow's song that I'll go through is track number 5, because I already did track 2, which was Zombie. I already did track 3, which was West Coast Time. And I already did track 4, which is Lost and Found. So I have to do 5, 6, 7, 8 over the next 4 days. And that would wrap up this concept album, The Humble Trip. And tomorrow I'll do the same thing. Something Going On in My Head is the title of the song. Something Going On in My Head, ? And it's a very funky, upbeat song, so I like this one a lot. And yeah, that's where I'll go from there. And hopefully I can wrap this up by the end of the week and move on to another project, because that's just how my brain's going. I said I would shut down my songwriting 2 weeks ago, but I just can't plan what direction I'm going in. I have a new anthology that I want to write, but I haven't started it yet. That's more of a really hard work when you have to come up with the prefaces like I did for my other book. And I have about 16 or 17 albums, so I have to write 17 short essays about the albums I wrote over the last 7 months. That's more of really hard brain work, so I don't want to do that yet until I get more committed to it, because it's going to take me could take a year to write and edit everything. It might take a little while, so I'm kind of avoiding getting started on that too, because I don't know what to write about yet. That's always the hardest thing. Once you get started, it gets a little easier, but that's a long-term goal right now for me. I said hopefully I could get it done in a year if I write another anthology book. So I was going to cut it off, but then I did the Culture Warts, and I had to include those songs. And then the Humboldt trip that I'm doing now, I'm going to include these songs also. And after that, I'm really going to have to cut it off, because it's too much to think of. And if I write more songs after this one, or another album, I'll just have to wait. And if I write another anthology a couple of years from now, if I keep writing songs like in this manic nature. But the last thing I'll say, because now I'm really rambling, I created like 18 new album covers over the course of the last few days, and I'm like, sometimes that works for me. If I create an album cover and I look at the art I designed, then I'm like, all right, well, this looks like an ambient cover. This looks like a heavy metal one. And it kind of helps me focus my songwriting. So it's an interesting way. If you're a visual artist and you're also a musician or a songwriter, it's a different way to get your thoughts in order and think about what type of genre you want to explore, if that's what you do. See, I think I'm kind of a unique perspective, because I'm always trying to write in any genre that hits my brain, and sometimes it's just everything. It's like a mixture of everything, and I like it like that. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it. Like a commercial artist that you want your CD in Starbucks, you have to fit a mold. You really do. Like Ween would never be a band that Starbucks would play or have their CD for sale at a coffee shop or something else like that. So it's a weird business. Like anything else, you have to fit a mold, or well, you don't have to, but maybe it makes it easier for people to understand what kind of music you're creating if they see your album cover and they hear you at a Starbucks. Then they're going to know what to expect. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, but the way I write songs, I'm not thinking like that. I'm just trying to be as free as possible. It doesn't mean I don't write commercially viable songs, because I think I have some even on this album, including West Coast Time, including the one I'll do tomorrow, Something in My Head. I think they're very upbeat, funky songs that could be pop songs on the radio. But that's just how I write stuff. I don't want to box myself in, because there's already enough of that subconsciously. Subconsciously, I'm probably blocking certain thoughts because I don't want to sound to this or that, or I want to keep it even keel. I don't know. It's weird, man. I guess I'm mainly talking about lyrics, but music too. Musically, people will get a perspective on an artist based on the music as well as the lyrics, and the album cover and all that stuff plays into it. So it's a tricky situation, but I just bring this up because I like designing album covers. I really like doing it. I've designed like 60 or 70, which I think are pretty good. And it's a new thing for me. It's a new art form that I've only done over the last maybe 4 years. Um, I spoke about this before, but when I first started Substack, I didn't have any photos. I just had the green little blocks that had the title of my post because I was like, I didn't even know Substack was social media that people could read my stuff. I just wanted to use it to organize my music, organize my songs and my lyrics and my poetry stuff. But it evolved and I started taking pictures of stuff and creating art. And it was a long process, but I'm glad I went down that road because the album covers are meaningful to me. They have some kind of a significant symbolism or metaphor or some kind of theme that maybe I didn't even realize at the moment when I created it, but it just fit the mood of the album. So yeah, the last couple of days I had some random doodles that I didn't use for anything. So I was just trying to create new album covers because my plan for the future would be to create ambient albums with no lyrics or maybe spoken word, but I want to stay away from lyrics for most of the future as I get older. I just want to create ambient sound, textures, field recordings, and get weird with it, get as weird as possible with it. I don't like words anymore in terms of lyrics. Like I keep saying this, but I keep doing it as well. It's like it's a weird battle I have internally where I don't want to write any more lyrics. I was like, I don't want to write any more songs, but I can't stop. I have to do it mainly because I want to make money off this stuff. And I'm like, maybe this one will get me through. Maybe this one will get me through. And that's kind of like in the back of my head, I think, as well. But when a song gets in my head, I just have to share it because that was my problem in my 20s and 30s. I didn't really try to take it seriously as a business like this. And I still haven't made any money, but I still consider this my main resume, my main business because this is what I'm good at. I'm good at writing songs, and I feel like I need to go outside myself to actually perform stuff because I'm not at that level as an artist. I'm not a performing artist, which I said a million times. But I feel like I could develop a strategy to become a performer or at least record acceptable vocals or my spoken word. Because even my spoken word, I'm not happy with. The way I read the lyrics today, I'm not really happy with how I did it. But I could work on that and just feel the groove if I had music and a little bit more of a bravery, I guess. Because it's all difficult. Any kind of performing art is difficult. Mimes, puppeteers, magicians, comedians, especially. Anyone who has to get up in front of people and perform something. Uh, Politicians, I even say that. They have to give speeches. That's an art form as oration, as an orator. And yeah, it's tough. Just to remember lyrics is tough. But anyway, I'm at 50 minutes. I have to stop this now, but hopefully I don't speak this much because I know I just rambled for an hour and there's probably a lot of shit that doesn't make sense when I listen to this again. But that's how it usually goes. But anyway, this is the beginning of this new album, although I've already done 3 of the songs, but when I did those 3 songs, I wasn't really aware yet that they were going to be a part of an album. So this is your introduction to the Humboldt Trip, which was my latest concept album, and I'll keep sharing songs for the rest of this week, and these songs will continue to develop as I go.